We want to thank you for being here. We recognize the commitment that you're taking to pursue excellence. You're just one step closer to achieving success. And the Institute is here to help at every step, wherever you are in your business journey. We've helped thousands of shops over decades and across the nation, from service advisor and manager training to a shop that's just starting out, or even those who are planning their growth, scaling from 10 to 20 to 30 locations. Those that are preparing for private equity sale, or even those that are succeeding their business to the next generation. The Institute and our many coaches with years of experience, both from inside and outside the industry, are here to provide education and tools to get you on your way. You do not have to do this alone. We hope you enjoy the content to come. For a better business, a better life, and a better industry, the Institute.
Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on when and where you're joining us from today. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. David Boyd is coming into us from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Minneapolis, Minnesota?
That's correct,
And
Minneapolis.
nice. Glad you're here, David. This is going to be awesome.
I am enjoying our fresh blanket of snow outside in Minneapolis. So for those of you, Cindy, I think you got a little bit up in Alaska, and thanks for sending that down to Minnesota. But for the rest of you around the country that aren't familiar with snow, let me just tell you, it's a real sad event in April to have a fresh layer of snow hit the ground. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. Our content is going to be very exciting, and I'm glad that we can share it. I've visited with Jamie before where we've talked about communication. I, of course, am in the communication industry, and with Inbound, we focus exclusively on the independent automotive repair industry. So I work with many of your peers across the country, and we talk about communication and the various aspects of communication to drive growth and to drive training and so forth across the industry. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I'm glad that you're able to join us today. So we have a great lineup for you today. We're going to talk about how to get started with a communication plan. What does coaching and training look like? What does call reviewing look like? Some of you are likely doing that today, and there are areas and opportunities to improve as you move down that path. We'll talk about a call flow. There's a dirty word that we used to use in the industry called a script, and I'd like to rethink that terminology because it speaks to how we look at the communication process. I'm a process guy. I come from a background of process engineering in corporate America, so I look at things as process flow. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is. What is a call flow? And as we look at creating this process and moving down the path with this process, we want to define aspects of clarity, develop confidence for your team, and ultimately drive customer satisfaction.
So, David, thank you for filling in. A couple of shout outs to Inbound from Todd. Todd says he loves Inbound, so thank you very much, Todd. And Ed Shear is joining us from Las Vegas. Thank you, Ed Shear, for being here. That's just super awesome. Glad you're here. So, David, to your point about call tracking and call scripts and I've listened to hundreds of thousands of phone calls. I can tell you right away why it is a phone call was not successful, why it did not connect, why it did not close a deal. Because of the thousands and thousands and thousands of phone calls that I've listened to. That's also the challenge, David. Finding the call.
Right.
So in a previous life, coaching and training with sales skills and customer service skills at a former company, and we had to go in and find the calls. So if you rely on your person that you're coaching to send you the calls, it doesn't happen. Send me a good one, send me a bad one. It generally, those that are good for the coaching, that want to succeed and want to progress, they're the ones that'll send you the calls. Those are the ones that don't. I'm being forced to do this. I really don't want to do it. It's a totally different experience. And so I would love to talk to you about your program because it is so cool what you have done in your process procedures, in your advancement, in your technology. You're a nerd when it comes to this as well. And I say that nerd in a loving, kind, and generous and respectful way, that you are amazing.
Thank you.
That you've done this work and this coding to get there. So the first thing I'd love to talk about is, oh, and a quick shout out to Christopher Johnson, Southern Ontario. Christopher, thank you for being here. You're awesome. To the phone calls. Your system has an amazing method, an amazing way of finding those phone calls and identifying a closed deal or a closed opportunity or a missed opportunity. What does that look like? What are you doing?
We're really using technology, and it's a great point. You've touched on so many parts that every owner I talk with wants to do call reviews and training and coaching, but they also acknowledge that there's this heavy lift of time. It's always the time, and you talked about the scenario where the service advisor may send in the call examples to the coach. Well, if they do it, they may be softballs, right? So they're going to self-select something that isn't that bad, and we miss that opportunity. So assuming that we understand what we're trying to accomplish in the coaching process, and I do want to make sure that we cover that as well. We want to make sure that we have the ability to very quickly get to effectively, pre-qualified, meaningful calls for this coaching review process. Something that has evaluated the call. We use technology. Now AI is everywhere, right? So we utilize AI to evaluate key performance indicators in a call, to evaluate key insights. AI can be used in a positive light to help us reduce that heavy lift of time required to listen to call after call after call, and very quickly get to something that would be effectively pre-screened or pre-qualified to benefit our call coaching and review process with the service advisor.
Well, so now question for you in that process, and I love that AI is involved in this. When it comes to a script, I've always taught that you should memorize the script and then crumple it up and throw it away. You don't want to sound robotic. You don't want to sound like you're reading a novel or
Right.
a script to somebody. Nobody wants to be read to, but let's have a conversation. Can the AI, can your software, can your program identify, is the service advisor following the
Flow.
pattern that we've established?
Yeah. And you've in that statement, you've asked two questions there. One is,
Yeah.
are we doing a script anymore? And at the risk of upsetting maybe people that are holding tight to their script, I'm sorry in advance. Scripting is, I think, a little bit antiquated, where we really want to train to the flow so that it isn't robotic, and it
Yeah.
doesn't become this, I need to, did it and go step by step through this process. The the flow of the call now becomes really the important aspect of what we want to evaluate. So
And I
we
like
want to
that.
establish that flow and
Yeah.
understand what is the context of the conversation, and that's now where the tools and technology can help us. They're very powerful in this regard, because that is much like having a person sit on the call
Yeah.
and listen to it and review it from that standpoint, instead of, was this word spoken in this order, in this sequence. That can still be evaluated. We may want to hit those key performance indicators, but it needs to be a little bit more natural. So we want to identify who I am and who the customer is called. We want to know who they are and how did they hear about us. And we want to go through this flow, but it can be very much conversational. You and I can just sit down and have a conversation. I can get to know you. Now we're developing a relationship, right? And we're communicating, rather than me going through the checklist of, have I checked these aspects off of my script?
Yes. And I think a lot of the service advisors that you are analyzing, or that are part of your program, have gone through an extensive phone training program so that they now know the flow of what to do. There's an entire generation now that would rather text than talk.
Right.
I think there's an entire generation that has lost the soft skills of how to answer the phone properly, how to greet a customer, how to acknowledge. And so I agree with you. It's the flow. Let's back up a couple steps.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to teach a script first for you to follow, and then crumple it up, throw it away. And now you've got the flow. Now it's just bullet points, and you're able to do it because you know the right words to say in the right order to say them. But it's not scripted. It's now conversation.
Yes, and even prior to this, it starts with the owner's expectation. So, does the owner have a clear understanding and idea of what they want to accomplish in call handling? Who are they hiring to be in the front office
Yeah.
and represent the face of that business to the customer? Assuming that somebody's calling, and overwhelmingly people are still calling today. They may text at some point in the interaction, but they are absolutely calling. And the people that we hire and have on the front counter, now we need to understand emotionally, which is funny to talk about in this context, but emotionally, where are they coming from? Do they even feel comfortable talking on the phone, right? So if I hire a younger service advisor, as you mentioned, they may be coming from an upbringing that doesn't have this type of interaction. So thinking through a conversation may not be natural. So that might be part of our training. The owners need to understand and acknowledge that's the case. Do I need to go out and get some third party help to help with this? Is this something that we're going to do ourselves?
Yeah.
Ultimately, we still have to have that basis of understanding, what do I want to accomplish as the owner? And then here are the things that I want covered, the script, as you say, and here's how we want this to go. We'll talk to this, we'll train to this so that we have a core understanding. Now this is going to go away, and we're going to talk about communication and personal interaction. That's where we get into the call flow. That it does become a logical progression. It starts with the owner, and of course, if they don't have a sense or concept of what call training can be and should be, there are plenty of helpers out there, like contact Jimmy at the Institute. You got to pan your camera over there just a touch.
Right.
And I work very, very closely with, make the noise as well to go with it.
Got it.
Mark and the crew that do a lot of call coaching with the Institute, just fantastic. So getting the business process nailed down is a core competency for the owner to have as well.
Oh, it is 100%, because there's a lot of people that can't talk on the phone, and here's where I discover those that can't talk on the phone. Oh, can't, wrong word. Those who are intimidated by the phone. It generally comes down to two things. One is training. Have they been trained? That phone is the most powerful tool in the shop. It's
Right.
more powerful than the air gun, more powerful than the lift in the back, more powerful than the engine hoist. It is what determines if the vehicle comes into the shop or not. So the most powerful tool is the phone. Are you certified to operate that phone? Most people that are intimidated haven't been trained, so they don't understand the basics of what needs to be done there. And that's where they need training. The Institute can definitely step in. Mark Sewell, phenomenal program for the APG, the Advisor Performance Group. We call that the APG. Phenomenal program. The advisors that graduate from this program are by far the best in the industry. So that being said, the second reason somebody is not confident on the phone goes into their mindset. And it could be that their self-esteem, their self-confidence, they've been just hammered so much with the no, the negative, the slammed phones, the yelling, the screaming. Their mindset isn't right. Well, that's a whole nother course on a different subject. You probably can't test for mindset with inbound communications, can you?
Mindset is not something that we can test, but we can look at other aspects of the call, because that speaks
Totally.
to our ability to overcome objections.
Yep.
And we can evaluate that. And if somebody has a tendency to cower back when
Yes.
an objection is met, right? They may not know how to overcome an objection. So this becomes a training point. And these are the parts that we learn as we have consistency in our review process over time. What is the capacity of my service advisor to handle calls, for them to recognize where they're at in a conversation, to control that conversation, have ownership, use their own sales skills, and we can develop sales skills. We can teach how to overcome objections. And these are key components that help us make sure that we are understanding the customer. Because I mean, when we think back, there's the cliche, right? When a customer calls the shop and they don't know what to ask, what are they going to ask? How much?
How much is it?
Fill in the
Yeah.
blank. How much is it, right? And how many times do service advisors hear that? Well, if we change this mindset just by a simple understanding that only means that my customer needs to be educated, right? So now that's my job. I'm an advisor. I will advise. So let me understand more. Why do you think you need XYZ? And we're going to flow into this conversation. I'm going to take ownership of this call. I'm going to ask open-ended questions. I'm going to overcome these objections. And ultimately, I'm going to get them to agree to come in and visit with my ASE certified technician. And we're going to take care of them. So we're going to build this confidence. We're going to develop this relationship. All of these things can happen. In fact, they should be happening to establish credibility within maybe the first 15 to 30 seconds of this call. right? We want to
Oh,
make sure that we're controlling this and we're not going to go down this other path, right? The other problem that we see and we can test for in call analysis is things like diagnosing over the phone. That's a
oh,
whole separate webinar, right? So let's maybe not go down that path today, and we can have Mark join us for that one.
sure, for sure. Yeah, there's just so many stories coming up in my mind as you talk about these service advisor skills and the questions that can be asked or should be asked. My brother called up the shop and said, "Hey, I want all new shocks and struts." Sure, we got you booked in today at 2 o'clock. Come on down. That. One simple question: what makes you think you need new shocks and struts? Because my brother left the shop, went around the block, came back in and said, "You didn't fix my car." Yeah, we'd replace all the new shocks and struts. There's 4 of them. They're brand new. Come here, we'll show you. What's going on? What's wrong? Well, the it shakes. The whole truck is shaking as I'm driving down the street. Oh, let's go look at your tires. He
Mhm.
needed all new tires. He had a big old bubble on one of his tires. Simple question would have avoided that. Whose fault is that? Is it my brother's for saying, "Hey, I want new shocks and struts," or is it the service advisor who should have taken the position of professional authority and say, "What makes you think you need new shocks and struts? I'd be happy to do it.
Right.
How come? Why?"
Yeah. So the mindset shift now is I'm not an order taker on the front counter, right?
Yeah,
So somebody's not going to call and just order a set of shocks and struts from me. They're going to order, a competent review and inspection of their vehicle. So my job then is to get them to gain, agreement that this is how this works, right? We are a professional organization. We're skilled and qualified, competent in what we do, and I'm going to build your trust, Mr. or Mrs. Car owner, and we're going to come in and work together on this, and I'm going to keep you informed and advised every step of the way. So these are the trust components that are important when we're looking at call reviews and training. Are we, identifying who we are, that we're, a trusted organization? How do we establish that credibility right off the bat? Where are we building brand value throughout the course of our conversation? And a conversation may be 90 seconds. It could be several minutes, but it's not like we're having this very long dialogue. We're not speaking for 15 or 20 minutes on the phone. These are relatively short conversations. So this is a trainable, teachable skill. Some people are more capable to do this naturally, and everybody can do it. I think we need to all acknowledge that for somebody who says, I'm not good at that. I don't buy that, because there are plenty of
mm,
things that I thought I wasn't good at in my life that I recognize looking back. I now am very good at those things. And it really has to do with, again, what's the expectation? What tools and training do I have available as an advisor to develop these skills required to meet and satisfy or even exceed the owner's expectation? And
yep,
then we all need to share the understanding that it is really about the customer. So at the end of the day, the experience of our customer is paramount. And the if I'm talking with somebody for the first time, this now we're setting the tone of our relationship literally forever.
yeah.
So the likelihood of them coming back depends on, this first 15 to 30 seconds of the very first time they ever call our shop. What are we doing in that period of time? How are we establishing our credibility, building confidence in our brand?
Oh, I love that. And when they do call into the shop, you've got to take that full customer journey experience coming in. The time that they actually call into the shop is the second opportunity you have to make that first impression. And I say that because they have looked at your website, they've looked at your social media, they've done some research about you before they
Mhm.
call you. Now that they call you, they want to confirm, is my research correct? Am I calling the right shop? Do you guys actually know what you're talking about? So that customer journey becomes very powerful in communicating with those customers.
I love that. I think I'm familiar with the term customer journey. I don't know how much we talk about that as an industry. I think I'm hearing it more, but I think that's an important part of our dialogue as successful, high performing shop owners,
Yes.
and operators within the industry. Is, do we understand the customer journey? So this call process is part of the customer journey, and I love that picture you paint too, that it is that phone call, the first phone call is the second impression we're making, the second opportunity to make a good first impression. Because it does come down to the search that they've done, or the referral that they heard from their neighbor, or the reviews that they've read out on the website and other sources. So it's a valuable understanding that feeds nicely into this call handling process.
Oh, it does. It does. And luckily, unluckily, okay. So to our ability to analyze the customer journey, you as a shop owner may want to talk to your neighbors and recruit them as secret shoppers, that you're going to comp their oil service, but you're looking for their customer experience. You want to know from them as a secret shopper, what's their customer journey. And we as shop owners, we need to do this often, to look at our full experience. Is it easy for somebody to book an appointment with us? Is it easy for them to call in on the phone? Is our phone easily identifiable? Does it ring 1, 2, 3 and we answer it? What is the customer journey? And to that point, the customer journey, is it consistent? Is everybody having that same experience as they're coming through?
This is good, and consistency is driven for the customer experience and our internal process, right? Do we have consistency in everything that we do? Does every vehicle receive a complete inspection? And do we estimate the entire inspection? Are we presenting all of this? All of those, we learn about consistency. That ties back to the phone as well, because I'll tell you, it's super easy to be distracted by something when I answer the phone.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a technician that is chewing me out because of, I don't know what reason right now. And I go answer the phone and I'm angry, and they can hear it.
Yeah.
And it comes across a little bit of like, yeah, what? Whoa. Okay. I need some help.
Deep breath first, buddy. Deep breath.
That's exactly it. And that's what I talk about. Like, okay, no matter what's going on around me, no matter what noise is happening, or how busy I am, it's always that moment of pause before I answer the phone. I'm going to take that breath. I'm going to, collect my thoughts, regroup, and then I'll answer the phone, and I'll let them hear me smile, because when I'm physically smiling, it sounds different. It sounds better, right? And when I'm tensed up like this because I'm angry and I just had some interaction, believe it or not, that's easily detectable on the other side of the phone. These are important parts.
It is, absolutely. And even a fake smile is better than a real frown.
Right.
You can hear it. Every service advisor class that I've taught, every phone skills course that I've taught over the last 15 years, one of my questions is, can you tell when a customer is multitasking? Oh, yeah, totally. Can you tell if their feet are up on the desk? If they're reclined in their chair? Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, me too. And guess what? They can hear the same thing about you.
Right.
Are you multitasking? Are you distracted? Are you being lackadaisical? Do they have your full attention? Yes or no? So not only does this phone skills help on the phone and the front counter, it also helps in communication in life.
Right. It does. The way that we interact with one another, it's very important. Am I distracted? Am I sitting here trying to have a conversation with my kids while tapping away on my phone? Right? Because that leaves an impression on the recipient. And it's so true in every aspect of communication throughout our lives. And I spend a lot of time, and thanks for bringing that point up, Jimmy, but I spend a lot of time thinking about how we handle calls and manage communication in the front office. It's easy to lose sight that it does apply to every aspect of our life. And setting the phone down, making this connection here, some eye contact. I'm going to smile. I'm happy to see you. I'm enthusiastic about being able to talk with you today, Jimmy. I'm going to use your name, not too frequently, but I'll use your name, Jimmy, because you're worth it, right? You have my undivided attention, and this becomes important. When we talk about technology and call reviews, it's important to have the process and expectation established to go through this consistently, so that we don't develop complacency, and then manage make this normal, right? So we want to make our review of communication. The review process is always backward looking. We don't want to spend too much time looking in the rearview mirror, but we want to know what's been on the road behind us so that we can make better decisions about how we're going to navigate going forward. So if we do this consistently, now it becomes a familiar process. We
Yeah.
can sit down and do it very quickly. And we have to have the ability to, quickly get to a call that isn't in a lot of cases, this very well. It happens more frequently probably than it ought to, but in the shop, the only calls that are reviewed, so to speak, are where something's gone really wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And now we have a problem. And this becomes an uncomfortable experience. It doesn't feel normal. So we want to normalize the review process. The other part of this too is, boy, listening to myself in a recording, man, that sounds funny. It really does. It's uncomfortable for the first half a dozen times, and then it becomes normal. But if I listen to myself in a call, and then it's 6 months before that happens again, now I'm right back to the beginning where it sounds unusual. It's not normal. So we want to drive consistency around this, and consistency is important for you as an owner to determine what is that. I'd like to see something done weekly. If we can spend 10 minutes a week on this, I'll tell you what, your performance on the phone is going to go to the moon.
Oh, and daily. Let's do it daily.
Why not?
Quick phone call. And this goes to providing feedback. Let's back up a little bit. My mind is getting a little bit further ahead of the conversation. My mouth is just wanting to be there with it. The mind. If you're not having weekly company meetings or daily company meetings, you're having company beatings. And what that means is there's a problem. Let's talk about it.
Right.
If it's a consistent company meeting and you always have an agenda and you follow the agenda and you play a good call, you play a call that needs attention, even the good calls can be improved. But playing that for the entire team allows them to hear it, see it, feel it, imagine it, and it becomes easier for them to then duplicate it and do it again. And when you're asking for feedback on how can we make this our best call from yesterday, how can we make this best call from yesterday even better today when it happens? So you
Yes.
play that call, everybody listens, they give their feedback, and it goes on. So how can you, and maybe I just answered my own question, how can you start reviewing calls and turning that feedback into improvement? Well, you got to be consistent with it.
It is definitely about consistency and the ability to get to those calls quickly. Again, I feel like I'm saying the same thing, and I apologize for that, but the heavy lift of time, if we remove that barrier, now this becomes natural. It becomes easy to do. It becomes fun and engaging. So how can I quickly get to those calls? Because my only other option historically really has been listening to call after call after call after call until I find something that's reviewable, right?
I've done that. So your software identifies that these are the angry customers. These are the missed opportunities. These are the top performers.
All of these things. So it will review the call and transcribe it. So you can read it like a text message. You can look at an AI generated summary, evaluate the key performance indicators that are important to you. And then we, take additional steps like having the AI determine, is this a lead? Basically, are we talking to a customer, right? Because the other funny thing about call recordings is everybody calls the shop, including our parts suppliers and vendors and distributors and the various dealerships and all of this stuff. Those when we start to introduce technology, those can look like bad calls because we tend to answer with the parts guy down the road in a very familiar way. Hey, what's up, man? That kind of thing. Well, now right off the bat, this isn't a reviewable call. So we want to know that this is a customer interaction. We want to know, is this an appointment setting conversation or is this a status check? Let's talk about status check just for a second, right? When a customer calls us at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and says, hey, what's the status of my vehicle? And they might use those exact words.
Well, you dropped it off at lunch.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they dropped it off at 7 a.m. or the night before.
And that's true. That's a different scenario. Certainly somebody should have called early in the morning and followed up with them. But let's say they didn't, and now it's 2 o'clock. The customer's doing the heavy lifting. That shouldn't be the experience, but that's training for a different day.
Yep.
to that phone call, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Hey, what's the status of my vehicle, David?
Well, yeah, let's check on, I mean, we're going to go down this path, right? And I'm like, oh, let me look up and see. And we want to know how well that call was handled. I agree with you. I think that that I didn't mean to get us off track on a status call, because that's probably a webinar by itself, but
Yeah, it is, but that's
let's
okay, David. Let's
go,
go down
right?
there.
So do we have an expectation to get in front of that for the customer? Really, no matter what time they have dropped their vehicle off, did we establish that expectation on when they're going to hear from us? And then how they're going to hear from us? How would they prefer hearing from us? That could be a text message, it could be a phone call, whatever that happens to be. But whenever a customer calls and they're looking for a status check, I shouldn't say whenever. The majority of the time, from what the types of calls I ever hear and see, this is a defect. I'll use that word. It's an error. We've let somebody down. So now we have to backpedal, and I got to go look up the status of this vehicle. I got to go and ask the technician who's still working on this, where are we? I haven't done that pre-work that might take 90 seconds, but I haven't done that and then proactively communicated to the customer. So now they're calling the shop. What's the status of my vehicle? And I see that usually happening about 3 o'clock. They're beginning to mentally kind of shut down for the day. They're thinking about, I'm going to check out from work here shortly. Do I need to go get my car? What do I need to do for taking the kids to practice tonight? They're asking an innocent enough question, but we've created some customer disappointment in that process.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, you have. And hopefully somebody is taking care of that earlier in the day. But those are coachable calls.
Coachable calls, exactly. So then we can go pick them up. Is this the status call? Are we using words or terminology? The nice thing about technology, because we're transcribing calls, we can identify if a word was spoken.
Ooh, yeah.
And I have a customer that it was feeling plagued by service advisors that were using the word unfortunately.
Ooh. Okay. Tell more about the story.
So we want to use we want to know when that happens so that we can coach an alternative option, right? Is it really unfortunate for the customer? Unfortunately, I can't get you in today. Or fortunately, I can get you in next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Is it unfortunate that it's going to be a $1,300 repair? Or fortunately, we found this now, right? How do we frame that up? And where are we using terms that could be off-putting to the customer that makes them defensive? So this was my customer's mindset. I don't want to hear that word, unfortunately, out of my service advisor's mouth. So we said, well, we're going to analyze the calls. We're going to find out when your service advisor speaks that one word, which is easy enough for the technology to pick up. But then I'm also going to send you an email with that transcription and the audio file that you can listen to within moments of that call, and now have an immediate coaching opportunity. So, and then you see that change in behavior almost immediately. The other thing that, if I can talk about this just for a second, Jimmy, is when we do this consistently and we know that the review process is happening and this is normal in the shop, it's normal for the service advisors. The next time they pick up the phone, they have this conscious awareness. This might be the next call that we're reviewing. Well, what happens when I feel like somebody's watching me? I'm going up to the next level. So I'm driving accountability of performance, right? We establish the expectation. We do this review process. We do it consistently. We understand what the outcome is going to be, and now we're driving the accountability through improved behavior. They are aware that this is happening, and it's not like they're operating in fear. I don't mean to confuse what we're talking about here, but there's an awareness, right? And where there's awareness, we understand that things are being measured. When something's measured, it's improved.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And you remind me of a story that I just barely heard up at ATE in Seattle, Washington. Katie, service advisor for a shop up in Washington, is in the APG program, the Advisor Performance Group, APG program. And her complaint was, I'm selling everything. There's no objections to overcome. Everything is being sold. Interesting feedback. Thank you very much. Interesting complaint. I don't take that as a complaint, though. Congratulations. That is awesome. Awesome for Katie that she's operating at a level with her coaching and training, and she's got that feedback.
Mhm.
To your point, the sooner, the quicker you can come to an advisor with feedback, that change will happen faster. If this is a call from last week, forget about it.
Mhm.
This is a call from last month, forget about it. Old news,
Right.
old news. Even yesterday, it's gonna be a little bit old. Yeah, it's better than last week or the last month, but yesterday is good.
Mhm.
Hey, here's a call from
This
10
morning.
minutes ago.
Yeah,
This
10 minutes
morning.
ago would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're using this word unfortunately. We talked about using the word fortunately instead of the opposite.
Mhm.
A word for me, and I'm wondering if you hear this on the phone calls as well, is the word just.
Mm.
Just is a weak word. I'm just calling to follow up with you. It's just going to
Just checking
cost.
in. Yeah.
Just checking in. So the word just, justification, justify, it's a weak position to take, as opposed to I'm calling you back about your vehicle. I'm calling to tell you we can get you back safe on the road and it's going to be $1,300. That's the other thing I hear a lot from service advisors is that they're selling from their own pocketbook,
Right.
their own wallet, their own bank account. Don't do that. Don't do that. You are an advocate for the vehicle. The car right now is telling you, I need $1,300 worth of work. I need $2,500 worth of work. You, as a service advisor, are the advocate for the vehicle.
Right.
And it's your job to be able to explain to the customer what your vehicle needs.
It's a mind shift again,
Yeah.
and this comes through training
Yeah.
because I might think that $1,300 is a lot of money or too much money. So if I frame my presentation to the customer from my personal financial perspective, that can influence how I present that to the customer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm sorry, it's going to be 1,300. It's it's not the professional mindset that we want to have. Even if I feel like that $1,300 is a lot of money, I can still come from the mindset or the perspective that my customer and I share the same objective. My belief is that they want to keep their vehicle and they want to be safe. Do
Yes.
I understand what they're doing with their vehicle? Is it a commuter? Is it is it the proverbial grocery getter? Am I taking the kids to practice on Saturday morning? What am I doing with this vehicle? And do I understand? Do I believe as the service advisor that it's my job to inform my customer and
Uh-huh.
share their interest to be safe and have a reliable vehicle? Reliability and safety are the top two things that most customers will tell you is important about their car. And if they're going to, if they just want it fixed so they can sell it, then they'll tell you that. Right. So that doesn't happen very often though, but I think that's kind of the belief
Oh,
that we carry with us.
David. It happens more often than you want to admit.
I'm sure.
This car has been for sale for 3 years. I
Yeah.
just want you to do the minimum. I'm going to sell it next month.
Next month. Right. But I
Thank
still
you.
want it to be reliable and safe in the meantime.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's where advisors need that coaching and training, be able to overcome the objections, be able
Mhm.
to talk to the client, customer, help them to understand that, yes, I understand what you want, but it's not safe. If this was my own vehicle, if this was my mother's vehicle or my father's vehicle or my daughter's vehicle, no, absolutely, this needs to be fixed and repaired today. It's not safe.
Right. And if there are things that are going to be due soon, like
Yes.
there are indications, right?
Yes.
What are those? Yeah, it'd be best to do that all today. We're already in here working on this, right? And however that is presented, but we may need to be earn our keep as an advisor and put this plan in place. So in 3 months we're going to do this, and that's getting kind of far in the weeds here because a lot of times this is much better suited for the advisor. The sales training part of this, the APG
Yeah.
program does such a good job in training how to do this really super effectively, and making sure that we understand and we're following up with the customer if they ever have declined services. So what does it come all down to though, Jimmy? It all comes down to the customer experience, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. What is that customer experience? Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it.
the customer experience is paramount from the time that they're looking at our website or they hear about us from their neighbor. Maybe they have a referral card with a discount in their hand, something of this sort.
Yeah,
Now they're
that's
going
a
to call and they're
powerful
going to begin
tool.
checking us out. And I've seen the journey that we talked about earlier in our session here, the customer journey, um, suggests that as we get to the fourth and fifth visit, now we have brand champions and people they're loyal to us. We develop loyalty, but that
Yeah.
loyalty that dates all the way back to that first phone call and the
Oh,
first information they've ever heard about us, really their first experience. So every customer interaction is an opportunity to create a lifelong customer. Owners spend a lot of time generating uh, customers to come in the front door,
oh,
and
for sure.
we know that the back door is pretty big on some shops. Hopefully, owners know what's going out their back door as well. So if we invest in the call review time, if we invest in the process and the training for the service advisors, that back door now begins to swing a little bit more closed and a little bit more closed. And it's because the customer experience has been elevated. They really trust and believe that, no matter who I talk with here, maybe you have 2 or 3 advisors at your shop and you're not going to talk to the customer won't talk to the same person every time. Do I have a vastly different experience depending on who I talk with? This is important to know. So training and coaching and call analysis and review, in my humble opinion, is best done when we're looking at everybody. And sometimes it's necessary to take the new person and bring them up to a certain point. But then are we consistent internally in our dialogue and our conversations, looking at everybody's calls and addressing those?
Totally agree. Totally agree. I'll give you my mother's advice when it comes to that sort of coaching and training is that we praise in public and we reprimand in private, or we instruct in private, or we provide that feedback in private. Because you don't want to embarrass somebody in front of everybody. Those public beatings, not
This is
good.
important for the process areas that I help owners with, because a lot of times we're looking for bad calls, and it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be just be bad calls, right? This is where sometimes an owner will tell me, I can't listen to calls because I'll choke them. Well, whether they will or won't, I don't know. But the whole point in all of that is, if I, if as the shop owner, if I listen to my service advisor's calls and they do something that's upsetting to me, how am I going to respond to that? I have an emotional response to that.
Yeah.
So it speaks to the normalcy, right? Is it normal for the owner to review calls and listen to calls? But are we also reviewing good calls, right? Can I listen to and can I identify what has gone well in a phone call, right?
Yeah.
It was efficient. It was effective. We made good use of the customer's time. We got an appointment set. We didn't diagnose over the phone. We did all of these things well, and we're going to listen to that and identify this was a good call. You did a great job on this one. Boy, if especially when we're doing this as a group or a team effort, when we listen to good calls together, now we know what good sounds like.
Yep.
And then separately, we can go and listen to there may be times where you'd want to listen to something that didn't go quite so well, but I want to be very careful now about how do I correct somebody on this, right? If I talk to the group, versus Jimmy, I've talked with you about this before. And I start to lay into you now. Now we're reprimanding publicly, and that can be very, very damaging for employee morale and the culture in the shop. So I agree with you 100%. Praise publicly and correct privately. And there are times, and certainly we want to make a habit of evaluating when things go well, and giving the fist bumps and the high fives for doing so.
I love it. I love it. In fact, let's ask our audience, how many of you guys are doing weekly meetings, daily meetings, monthly meetings? How often are you having quick meetings, stand-up meetings with your service advisors, your technicians? How often are you having these meetings to provide feedback on phone calls? How many of you are listening to phone calls? I'd love to hear that as well. So go ahead and put those into the comments, because David, if if we are not having those morning huddles, if we're not having those quick stand-up meetings, it's a public beating because
Right.
it only gets addressed when it's a problem. Oh yeah, look there. Bill
Bill
is
and
doing them
Cindy.
weekly. Cindy is morning huddles and weekly meetings. Very nice. And Bill and Cindy, for your phone calls, phone call reviews, is that also a weekly event? Is that a daily event? Is that only as needed? Cindy says she's listening now.
Now
Oh,
and
now
then.
and
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
thought
being
she was like,
transparent, Cindy.
yeah, I'm multitasking. I'm listening to this webinar, but I'm checking all these phone calls as well. I, yeah, now and then. My
Mike's
growth.
point is that's a key takeaway, that it's important to acknowledge that we never want to lose the intent. So and good job, Bill.
Yeah,
The intent is super important. So as an owner, you can you can discourage yourself by saying, oh, I've told myself I want to do this more for 3 years now, and I
yeah.
forget it. I'm just going to give up on it. So point well taken. It's if you want to do it more, great, maintain that and then do it more. And if you don't, because something, busyness gets in the way, maintain the intent to do that and pursue the intent, because it will elevate your service advisors and elevate your customer experience.
Oh, and I love it. And you see Cindy's comment as well. They've got a new person, and with that new person, they're doing more phone reviews than they previously do. Why? Because you've got a new person. You want to make sure that they're part of the company, the culture, the process, the procedure, the look, the feel, the customer journey experience. They want to make sure that that resonates even
Yes.
with the new people. So I love it.
So I'll go back to the process part of this, right? So the owner's expectation, for the owners, and thanks for the real time feedback from those that have voiced their perspectives. If you don't have a clear understanding yourself of what you're wanting to accomplish, just take a little bit of time and do that. Talk with your coach.
Yeah.
The service advisors can get involved in a coaching and training program, but I know certainly a number of the people live with us here now are also part of coaching. So talk with your coach and help define what that expectation can be and should be, because there are good, healthy ways to define, as the owner, what do I really want to accomplish in this phone call.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And to that point here, Cindy is saying, "Hey, I'm super interested in this AI programming. How will that?" Uh, I well, Cindy, I think it's going to save you a ton of time.
Right. It does save a ton of time, and I don't know that we want to. I mean, I'd be happy to just show real quick and give a quick overview of what it looks like.
Yeah,
But I would say, I'm happy to talk with anybody, whether you're an inbound customer or not. I can talk with you about what the tools can help you accomplish, and how you can quickly get to the review process. And what we have is our insights platform, and I have this set up based on some real data here. We're looking at a subset of calls, and I think Stu will be able to flash this up on the screen here. But
Michael,
I'm sorry.
Michael, pull up the screen here, Bubba. So you've clicked
Um,
it, and we're going to be able to see your live screen. This is probably your demo account, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
so it's based on real data, but
Sure.
so we have we have the ability to look at a subset. If you're a multi-shop owner, we can look at a subset of locations, and we can filter in on a specific service advisor. We have different scorecards that we can use. But what I want to really help illustrate to Cindy's question and point here is, I have a subset of calls. This is actually filtered down for leads. Like, I know that these are customer interactions, and the appointment was not set, so the appointment set is false. I want to identify calls where we didn't set the appointment, but this was a customer interaction. So I have a set of calls where things went well, except we didn't set an appointment, and then I have defined coachable calls. But I can look at a summary on this and figure out, what, in just like very quickly, what is going on with this call. I can look at a transcription of this call. The funny thing is, I can read through a transcription very quickly,
Yeah.
and that's super helpful. And then if I want to, I can drill into the call in more detail. And this gives me an interesting perspective too, not only telling me about the length of the call, but who's talking and when. We were talking a little bit before about, ownership and control. These are some leading indicators about who's in control of the conversation. If the customer is talking 2/3 of the time, we might want to question really who's in charge of this conversation. So just wanted to give you a quick peek, but the whole idea here is that I can quickly drill in for a particular service advisor or maybe one location that I'm working with if you're an MSO, and then filter down based on certain criteria. I want to evaluate if I just want to look at if these are leads. These are all of the lead calls, whether an appointment was set or not. And
the past 7 days. This is looking at 7 days, 216
7 days
phone
worth of data here. So I have 216 calls to look at, which is way too many, right? I can't
Oh, yeah.
look at 216 calls. Over here, I see a gross conversion of the customer interactions of 70% conversion. So 70% of these 216 calls, we had an agreement to buy or an appointment set. And then I can go down into here and identify there is a subset of 5 each. So 5 champion and 5 coachable calls that I can very quickly go to. These are pre-screened, qualified. I have all of the key performance indicators here that I know that's super small on your screen, but was this an existing customer? Did we take ownership? Did we leverage our sales skills, build brand value, things of this sort?
Love it.
And at a super high level, that is what technology can do for you. So Cindy, this is how you can, leverage technology to really drive this process for you, and others that are hearing this today or in the near future.
Because what you're going to do is save Cindy hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of listening to phone calls, looking for that one call to find
Right.
that's coachable. It just stacks it right up for you. I love that. That's absolutely amazing.
It really puts it right in front of you. And when I talk about taking the heavy lift, and we can go ahead and take that off the screen now, but when we take that heavy lift of time off of the owner's table or the call coach's table, that is where it becomes a force multiplier, right? I have the ability to do more in less time.
Yeah.
And that's super powerful for the owners who, if they're taking this responsibility on themselves. But it also means that my call coach, who I brought in to come alongside in my training process, can maybe work with 2 or 3 of my advisors instead of just one.
Oh, I love it.
They have the ability to very quickly get to these calls.
And I love your drill down as well, where you're able to drill down to the specific advisor. So to our audience, are there any questions, comments, concerns you have that you want to address here with David? We're coming in quick here to be landing this plane. If you've got questions, let's type them in now. I love that we can drill down to the specific advisors.
That's important.
Can you also see their close rates too? Will it show you Eric is closing at a 99%, or let's call it 90%. And then I've got Joe over here that's closing at a 30%, where they might say that the shop average is 55 or 60. That's not bad.
Yes.
But can we look at each advisor to say, all right, Joe, you need to shadow Eric for the next 3 or 4 hours?
Exactly. So it does just that, to answer your question. The short answer is yes. So
Wow.
with our insights dashboard, when you filter, if that filter includes just the advisor, that those numbers, the conversion and the data and the metrics, the key performance indicators, that's only looking at just that one advisor.
Oh, that's so cool.
So it really is a powerful tool, because if I have an advisor whose conversion is 50% on appointment setting calls, and I have an advisor who's 90% on appointment setting calls, we can do a couple things. One, we can acknowledge that we have an appointment setting problem, and we know who to work with. But 2, we can leverage my stronger advisor to have examples, right? We were talking about the review of good calls. We can take some of those good calls and say, hey, underperforming advisor, this is what a good call sounds like. Because once I hear those examples, now I can begin to relate and adapt to my interaction with the customer and begin to emulate what a stronger advisor is doing in order to perform better.
Nice. I love that. And there was a testimonial there a minute ago from Jenny that's using you at Titan Auto and Tire, Chesterfield, Virginia.
Jenny.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Jenny.
I saw that pop up. I didn't read it, but
it's good, man.
good.
It's been a wonderful coaching tool and makes monitoring advisors easy.
Thanks, Jenny.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
So to Ed Shear's question here, what do you think about the AI-driven automated phone answering system? So this will be our last question before we land the plane here.
This is a good question, and this is I would say probably a different type of AI. So now we're doing some customer interaction with the use of a bot, and my preference would be to not use the bot, but I also see that there's value in the industry to be able to do that, because I fully acknowledge there are times when we can't handle 100% of the calls.
Oh yeah, we've got 4 clients in front of us. The phones are ringing off the hook. We can't get to the phone because we got to take care of who's in front of us. If we take care of who's in front of us, we miss all those phone calls that could have come through. Or maybe it's after hours.
Right.
So to
That's a
that,
good use here. Yep.
let's say that that's the scenario. We're not having a service advisor not answer the phones because they want it to go to the bot. That's bad.
Right.
Let's assume that it is a scenario that it's the safety net. What do you think of that, David?
I think that if we have the correct perspective, that really this becomes an interactive voicemail, then it's a powerful experience. It can benefit the customer, and this is about the customer experience. And you may also know that there are times that the customer may, I'll say annoyed, but they might just be like, whatever, hang up. So if you have the correct expectation about what that type of tool can do for you, it's important to know that it can and will benefit you after hours, because it allows you to take that appointment, right? And I partner with somebody that provides a very powerful tool that does this. It integrates, with the vehicle history, and it can pull this forward, and allows us to really be sophisticated in that appointment setting process. But that is probably the ideal time to use this is after hours. And if we look at this as really the sophisticated or interactive voicemail, this is a good use of AI in this way. The last thing, and thanks, Cindy, too. I love that comment. AI on the phone has gotten a lot of heat lately. I don't know if you've seen or heard about this, but I, as a communication expert focused on the industry, I pride myself in my ability to protect my customers. So there's some case law coming forth now with regard to the use of AI, whether it's the kind of AI I do with call reviews or the bots and things of this sort. And we want to be very particular in the way that we deploy that. So I've got my thumb on that. I was on a very extensive call yesterday with a law firm that is a front runner in the industry, in the communication industry. So these are all of the things that are important. And as an owner, there's a lot of cool and flashy tools out there. I would say make sure that you understand what you're deploying and the potential legal implications, particularly in states where we have two-party consent laws with regard to phone use.
Yeah, that's interesting, David. Thank you. We'll have to do a follow-up webinar to this webinar to find out what the ruling is or what happens with this new case law. That would be fascinating.
It's important. Yeah, it's important. The wiretap, call recording, all of these. And I'd love to have a follow-up for your audience, because it is important, and we don't hear about it often, but people get in trouble. So you got to have an advocate on your side that can help you with this, right?
Love it. Love it. Well, with that, thank you, David. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort, your energy to our automotive aftermarket industry. You are an awesome asset for everyone here. And those who use your services, they know how great you are and the services you provide. So hats off to you, brother. Thank you very much. You make the coaching and training side of what we do with phone skills and advisors and following that proper phone flow so much easier.
Thank you, Jamie. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, brother. And for those of you still with us, there are some upcoming events. Check out our website, wearetheinstitute.com. Go under all events. See that we have a leadership intensive coming up very soon. If you want to dig deep into the human-centric side of why you choose to do what you do and why your clients are the way they are and why your employees are the way that they are, and how can you best communicate knowing this information is going to be very important. That leadership intensive happening in April. We are in April, happening in April in Salt Lake. Salt Lake City, Utah. Love to have you be a part of that. It's going to be awesome, awesome and amazing. We've also got some service advisor training coming up soon. And in September or October? I think it's September is the next mini Mars series we are going to have in the office in Ogden. It's going to be limited seating, 50 people only. Limited seating, mini Mars. Love to see you there. Thank you very much, David. Thank you to everybody who is here today. Good to see you, my friends. Thank you, Cindy, Bill, Ed Shear, Jenny, Mike. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.